Chapter 20 and 21 of John. Chapter 20 focuses on the resurrection. Mary coming to the tomb. Peter and John going, hearing about Jesus being not in the tomb. They run to the tomb and they see for themselves that he's not there. And it's just like, whoa. And then Thomas is doubting that Jesus is really back. He says, unless I put my fingers on his wounds and my hand on his side where the Roman soldier, thrust him with a spear, unless I see him, I won't believe. And Jesus appears before him and says, don't be unbelieving, but believe. It's amazing. I love it. And then on chapter 21, it's like, after all these things, you could have ended with chapter 20, because it almost perfect. Therefore, many other signs Jesus performed in the presence of his disciples, which are not written in this book. But these have been written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. That's it. As the purpose for the book of John to have been written. So you would believe that Jesus is the Son of God, and by believing you'll have life. And chapter 21 is almost like a little excerpt on the end of it, where John, being an old man, just decided to put this in there about the disciples being, the disciples were treated to doing something that they were familiar with. They went fishing after the resurrection, and they just went fishing. And Jesus appears to them on the shore. This is, Peter just jumps off the boat they were fishing on and swims to Peter, and they have fish and a little fire. And Jesus comes to Peter and says, Peter, do you love me? And Peter's like, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Like, feed my lambs. And Peter, do you love me? So, yes, Lord, you know I love you. Feed my sheep. Peter, do you love me? And Peter was grieved that he was asked a third time. He says, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. And it's almost like, you denied me 3 times, so now 3 times I'm going to ask you. But as a reminder each time, feed my sheep. It's not a rebuke, It's a loving command to feed my sheep. That's amazing, though. I remember I was trying to decide whether or not I wanted to go join the church. Where they were feeding the poor down in the park in LA somewhere. I was trying to decide whether I wanted to go, and this verse came crashing through my head, my heart. The Holy Spirit was like, feed my sheep. I was like, David, do you love me? I'm like, yes, Lord, you know I love you. Feed my people. It's like, David, do you love me? I'm like, of course I love you. Feed my sheep. I was like, okay. So I went. And it was good. It was amazing. It was a blessing, feeding the poor and being there. And I love it. Just it ends. And there were many other things which Jesus did which were not written in detail, but I suppose even if they were, the world could not contain the books that would be written by him. And that is the end of the Gospel of John, from the beginning to end. And I hope, I pray that you continue on in the study, because this is just, the first 4 Gospels. After that, you have the Acts, the book of Acts, which is the second work of of Dr. Luke. We'll get into, and all of the letters by Paul, and then the other letters written by other disciples, other apostles, and then the book of Revelation, which is an amazing book at the end times, which we'll get into all of that. But I remind you that the last healing that Jesus did was that of the servant, that Peter cut his ear off and Jesus healed his ear. But after the resurrection, Jesus is never seen by any of his enemies, by anyone that hates him, only by those who love him. That's interesting to me. Judas, of course, went and hung himself, but all the other disciples, they were regathered and they were recommissioned unto the Lord to go out and make disciples unto the nations, unto the world, and everywhere, to proclaim his gospel, his message, his love, his truth to all. And don't be asleep. Wake up. Be alert. Be ready. For the time of the Lord is near. The world is only going to get darker. You got to fill up on the Holy Spirit and on the Word now, because darkness is coming. You got to trust him and hold on to him. Have faith, my friends. He is with us wherever we go. He has promised that. Read, Chapter 17, John chapter 17 again. He has promised to be with us always, even to the end of the age.